Welcome back to The Hill Report, where we break down the biggest moments from Washington and explain what they actually mean for you. If you're tired of mainstream media spin and want the raw facts, the institutional context, and the real conservative principles behind the headlines, you are in the right place. We separate the political theater from the true constitutional fights.
My answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out of over
listed as a co-conspirator.
And we invited you in.
What you are about to watch is a staggering, high-stakes collision within the conservative movement itself. This isn't your typical partisan bickering between a Democrat and a Republican. Instead, we are looking at a fierce battle during a House hearing between Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie and Attorney General Pam Bondi. At the absolute center of this dispute is the enforcement of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. For years, everyday Americans have demanded complete accountability regarding Jeffrey Epstein's elite, powerful web of associates. From a principled conservative perspective, this issue hits at the core of our deepest values: government transparency, the law of rule, and an absolute refusal to allow institutional cover-ups, no matter which political party occupies the White House. Representative Massie is aggressively holding the Department of Justice's feet to the fire, exposing massive failures in their document production, including the catastrophic exposure of victims' names, alongside the heavy blacking out of suspected co-conspirators. The tension in the room is palpable as institutional defense mechanisms clash with the demands for raw, unredacted truth. If you appreciate straightforward, no-nonsense political analysis like this, make sure you're subscribed to The Hill Report and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Take a look at this intense exchange.
Recognized for 5
May I
minutes.
respond very briefly to her statement?
Well, I think we can do that probably on one of our members' time.
Okay, thank you. I don't want that to get away. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators. Fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking. Not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times. I
already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr. Chairman. This isn't how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from
Kentucky. All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman, may I give my answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out of over 4,700, and we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician. You need to get on these matters.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules here.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim time when you don't.
This is bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way you want.
This goes over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush.
Here's what stood out to me. This wasn't just a heated argument. It was a fundamental clash over accountability, institutional trust, and the public's right to know the full truth. Representative Thomas Massie did not mince words. He brought concrete evidence to the committee room floor, showing exactly how the DOJ bungled its document release under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Let's talk about why this matters. Massie pointed out 2 deeply troubling flaws in the DOJ's production. First, he highlighted an egregious failure where the DOJ accidentally left the identities of victims visible while redacting a list of names they were explicitly asked not to hide. Protecting survivors is paramount, and exposing them while sheltering powerful figures is the exact opposite of justice. Second, Massie brought forward an FBI document concerning child sex trafficking co-conspirators, where Les Wexner's name was heavily redacted. Massie pointed out that Wexner wasn't merely hiding behind tax evasion or money laundering files. His name was buried under a child sex trafficking title until congressional pressure forced it in unredacting. This is where the debate gets interesting. When Massie cornered the Attorney General on accountability and asked who was responsible for these specific decisions, AG Pam Bondi didn't offer a systemic defense of her agency's actions. Instead, she chose to push back aggressively on a personal level, claiming the issue was corrected quickly and accusing Massie of having Trump derangement syndrome and being a failed politician. Many voters will likely see this differently depending on what they prioritize. Mainstream, administration-aligned Republicans might cheer Bondi's sharp political counterpunch, viewing Massie's relentless oversight as an unhelpful attack on an administration official. However, constitutional, anti-establishment conservatives will see Massie's cross-examination as exactly what oversight is supposed to look like. Massie effectively proved his dedication to principle over party when he stated that this cover-up spans across 4 separate administrations, explicitly naming the Obama and George W. Bush eras. He correctly framed this multi-decade institutional rot in the deep state rather than a uniquely partisan failure. Critiquing the weak points of this exchange, the Attorney General's deflection into personal insults and bringing up unrelated legislative votes like Massie's stance on AI deepfakes did little to address the core legal question. The law requires a searchable, transparent accounting of the internal decisions regarding whether or not to prosecute these high-profile individuals. Deflecting by calling a congressman a hypocrite fails to answer why the DOJ's portal remains a labyrinth of nested redactions. Separating the facts from opinion, the fact remains that the DOJ did release heavily redacted files, and they did commit errors regarding victim anonymity. Whether that constitutes an intentional cover-up or severe bureaucratic incompetence remains a matter of fierce debate. But for everyday Americans watching this play out, the policy implication is crystal clear. The push for total transparency regarding the Epstein network cannot be treated as a partisan game. True conservative governance demands that the Department of Justice answer to the law, protect the innocent, and expose the corrupt without fear or favor. This has been The Hill Report. If you found this analysis valuable, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest moments from Washington. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next report.